Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be discussing a mathematical indicator that can provide some insight on where Bitcoin might ultimately bottom out. So I want to start off by saying this indicator was inspired by Benjamin Cowen, who is a crypto YouTuber that focuses on data science. So huge thanks to him for inspiring me to create this indicator. So I used the data from the previous three bear markets to gather an equation that can better forecast the next bear market. So this actually leaves out this 2010, 2011 price action here because ultimately I don't think this is very accurate given the low volume and there just wasn't many exchanges that existed back then. So what I did was I took the closing prices from all of these bear markets and I formulated an equation and pieced together a logarithmic curve to help predict where we might ultimately bottom out. So this green line, this general one in the middle, is the general curve that I used, and then I added plus 20% to the upside and negative 19% to the downside to create this sort of band, as you can see, which is just kind of better because it shows more of an accumulation zone rather than a single price point. So I think it's important that generally you could take this band as a zone rather than a specific price point, because using one price level is always dangerous, considering that I might never reach that level, or it could just never interact with this level, right? So having a band provides more of a room for error, which is important in investing, because you're never going to time the bottom specifically or the top specifically. Which leads me to this red curve, which I took these three peaks in 2011, 2013, and then 2017, and I created this red curve and then added 10% to each side. So as you can see, it actually predicted this 2021 peak pretty well. And I will be clear on this, I did not include this data right here in 2021 as part of this logarithmic curve. So this is only data from this peak, and then this peak. And as you can see, it did a phenomenal job of the April 2021 peak. So I am happy to see that it has some relevance to what we're trying to accomplish here. So I just want to start off by saying how we have re-entered this green band after not being anywhere near it for approximately 77 weeks. So it has been a very long time, and you can see that we are dipping our toes back into this green curve. So if we just kind of draw this out a bit, you can see how the curve is continuously moving up, and if we just kind of consolidate here and move sideways, then we will be moving further into the band because it moves up. So if price action were to go sideways, just to give you kind of that image of what I'm talking about, if that's what price action did, which it obviously won't, then we would be kind of at the middle of this band by the early 2023 stage. So just to give you some perspective, this is always moving up. That is how the curve works. It is a formula, and it will continuously move up for the end of time. So that does show you the limitations, right? Bitcoin's not going to just continuously move up like this forever, but we can assume that over the next few years this could provide some insight, considering how Bitcoin's history is kind of contingent on the fact that it has been moving up for the last decade, and it will probably continue, given that the trend there's a lot of momentum along Bitcoin in the long term, and we kind of see that momentum picking up even at these higher price levels and higher market caps. So I would consider that maybe we could see some sort of bottom around this general zone here. It depends on where we do bottom, but if we were to bottom today, I would consider this middle line to be an accurate representation of the most likely scenario, which is currently at $20,000. So if you've watched my prior videos, I've discussed how I think $20,000 is a phenomenal level to accumulate, considering that not only is this the 2017 peak that ultimately provided resistance for like several years, over the macro perspective, it was also going to be pretty close to the 200-week simple moving average, which I'm going to pull that up on my chart just to give you some perspective. I have the 200 and the 300-week moving average. I'm going to change the color so you can see the difference. The 300-week moving average is going to be in yellow, and the 200-week is going to be, I'm going to do red. So you can see how in the past this red moving average has provided support in the bear markets, and you can see that time and time again. And this yellow moving average is much longer. So it's a 300-week moving average. It takes the closing price of the last 300 weeks and averages it together. So it actually just kind of started off existing in 2016, just because it takes a minimum of 300 weeks just to show some sort of data. So you can see how in the March 2020 crash, this was ultimately where the bottom was. So if you can see how these moving averages kind of correspond to this middle green line, which again, it's about the confluence of having multiple indicators kind of point to the same thing. So if you have that confluence with all these different indicators, it can help you better navigate the bear market, which is always helpful. We don't want to rely solely on one thing, but looking at a variety of perspectives allows us to get a lot more insight on where Bitcoin could ultimately bottom. So I'd say this range between 16,000 and 21,000, which is also moving up, considering that this is taking closing prices from 200 weeks ago. So if we go back 200 weeks, you can see we are closing at $6,000. So we're placing closes at $6,000 with closes at $30,000. So obviously it is going to continue moving up unless we start closing below $6,000, which I do not believe we ever will. So as you can see, this is moving up, this is moving up. So all these averages and these indicators are moving up, and I think that the longer it takes us to find a bottom, probably the higher it will end up being. So if we were to capitulate today, I would consider a bottom around maybe $18,000 to $20,000 to be the most likely scenario. But if we capitulate at the end of 2022, then I think ultimately 2022 would provide a lot more time for this to consolidate, and ultimately a bottom of around $22,000 would be more likely in that scenario, considering that these are moving up. But there is no absolutes, guys. This is always going to be dependent on the macro perspective and global situations. So I would consider that to be something that you want to look out for, and if we are able to go back down to this level here around $20,000, $22,000, I would heavily start accumulating personally. Again, this is not financial advice. This is just what I'm going to be planning on doing, considering that we have confluence with several indicators. So that's the end of the video, guys. I hope you did enjoy, and as always, I will see you in the next one.